Yo, what is going on, everyone? I'm back with another first impressions video. It is going to be on my X2 mini and regular size, and I do want to talk about the mini firstly because I feel like I have a lot more critiques about this mouse than I do the regular. First off, you can see from the side profile that it's going to be a very prominent hump. And I do feel like it's a little bit weird that all of their marketing was mostly towards the side profile showing of this mouse, because I don't feel like this mouse is very claw focused. Normally, when you show this amount of side curvature with this prominent hump being shown mostly, is going to be mostly towards claw grip. I feel like that would be the main focus of the marketing would be towards people that claw. Although I feel like this mouse is actually really bad for claw grip, in all honesty. And I feel like the reason because of that is because of the side curvature and the lack of back flare. Obviously, the first thing that you would notice between a comparison between the Lamzu Atlantis, my actual main, and the X2 Mini would be firstly the length. I feel like that's very, very obvious. And the next thing is the more centralized hump on the Lamzu Atlantis compared to the X2 Mini. Normally, when I see mice like this, I'm like, oh, then I would choose the X2 Mini because I want more palm contact. That gives me, as a claw gripper, more stability. However, that could not be more wrong with this mouse, and I really do feel like it's because of the side curvature here. The lack of back flare, like I said just a little bit ago, makes it so that gripping the mouse is actually more difficult. The main way I'm gripping the mouse is my palm muscles here. So I'm really like squeezing the back here and then just clawing it normally. I feel like that's what like a pincer claw would be. I don't do that style of claw too often, but that is where all the stability is. I'm just locking it in my palm muscles rather than locking it with my fingers on this side. And normally the back flare on mice would allow me to not move past it, but because it's basically like flat, this little bit of side curvature just isn't enough. So sometimes I would be pulling back a little bit too much, and it just makes it for very, very uncomfortable situations. Another big thing with this mouse are the comfort grooves, which normally I love, but for some reason they just feel so cheap on the mini compared to the regular. I feel like the regular, the buttons are a lot better tensioned, and I feel like the side curvature isn't as awkward feeling. It might be because, like I said, I feel like this mouse is way more geared towards fingertip people, and I feel like that's where this mouse really excels. Even for someone like me with 19 by 11 to 12 centimeter hands, I feel like even I am very comfortably able to do fingertip on this mouse with literally no palm contact, and I think that's what fingertip people do mostly. But I'm still able to hit the side buttons perfectly fine, still able to click near the top, and still able to reach the scroll wheel very okay. And I feel like for fingertip, this is where the mouse really excels, which is really confusing to me because I don't understand why there would even be a side hump. I feel like this should have been a completely different mouse. I feel like this shouldn't have been a mini version. As you can see from the size comparison, this would be the regular and this is the mini. I'm not too sure why the mini looks so much bigger than the regular actually, but this is the regular one. Please don't get it confused. And this is the mini. And the size comparison is very, very strange to me because I'm able to get a very consistent grip on this mouse with less tension on my palm muscles and more tension on my fingertips. And even though the lack of flare is still there, it's not prominent enough like this one to where it's almost flat. I just don't understand what Pulsar does when they do mini versions, because things from like their X-Lite to their X-Lite Mini was just such a vast jump. It didn't even feel like an X-Lite. It felt like a completely different mouse. And I feel like that's what this feels here. This mouse feels way more fingertip focused and this one feels way more claw focused. And it's just so confusing why they can't just make a middle ground or make a slightly larger starting mouse. This feels like it should be what I would call a mini. In all honesty, I feel like it's very short. I feel like the hump is placed really well. Even though my hands are so short, I can still reach near the top. I feel like, oh shit. I feel like the regular is what I would label as a mini, and I would label the mini as a completely different mouse. It doesn't feel at all the same. The next thing I would like to talk about are the clicks, and in typical Pulsar fashion, I don't feel like these clicks do KO 8.0's any justice whatsoever. I feel like they are very poor clicks. I don't know what is wrong with Pulsar where they're not able to make very, very good like click feeling, because the XM1R I still like is the gold standard for how KO 8.0s should feel. And whenever I compare other KO 8.0s like the Bolt and now the X2 to the XM1R, I feel like these are just terrible. They feel very dull. They don't even feel like real switches. They feel real. There's a ton of post travel actually. And I think that's what adds to the cheap feeling. They also feel very hollow. Although the scroll wheel is pretty nice, it's pretty much like a super light scroll wheel in all honesty. The grooves are very similar. I think better tension than the GPX actually. Side buttons are pretty okay. I'm just very glad that Pulsar finally went with actual switches, because using those micro switches in their X lights really made me pull my hair out. That's honestly, I'm very glad that I don't use side buttons enough, because every time I even touch them or thought about them, they just make me want to puke. In terms of the feet, I don't know if they are the same exact feet as the Pulsar X lights. If they're not, what the fuck? You made them look exactly the same. If they are the same, then good job, Pulsar. Proud dude right here. In terms of the sensor, I know the 3395 had a bit of issues on the first batch, but Pulsar was luckily able to push out an update for the motion sync, which I actually had to ask somebody about, because I am not smart enough to understand what that stuff is. But really, I don't notice a difference. It feels like a normal sensor. The 3395 I do tend to like a little bit more, because I do feel like my tracking overall is just a tiny bit smoother. Not very noticeable, but very slightly noticeable. It's pretty hard to describe the feeling, honestly. But now that I am done bashing the Mini, I can kind of talk about the regular. I did actually just turn the mouse on. Sorry for that. Ever since the Lamzu Atlantis came out, I just can't recommend using this mouse for claw, because the Lamzu Atlantis is cheaper by like $10. I don't know if it's 80 or 90 within that price range. So it's either $5 cheaper or $15 cheaper than the X Lite. The other thing too is the quality. Lamzu have really nailed quality on this mouse. It is just unbelievably insane what a company's first mouse was able to feel like. The stock skates are way better, and Pulsar just can't do that for me. Although I do feel like the build quality is really good. I don't want to press on the bottom plate. This gives me too much anxiety, actually. But touching the sides, the build quality is really good. A lot better than their original X Lite. Their V1 had a lot of creaking for me. I felt like I could crush it in my hand. But thankfully, I don't feel that way about either X2, the Mini or the regular size. The switches, again, they're slightly better than the Mini, at least on my copy, but they still feel very hollow, a lot of post-travel yet again, and it's just very disappointing to see another company that just can't do kill switches enough. I'm starting to think it's a conspiracy to just do kill 8.0 so bad that everyone thinks that it's a bad switch. The feet are pretty similar than the Mini, honestly. I don't feel like they're any different. They might be exactly the same for all I know. Side buttons, pretty good. Again, glad they're not using the micro switches. The thing that I actually didn't talk about was the weight. Fantastic. As per usual, Pulsar is able to make a very lightweight option, and it feels good no matter what pad I'm using. The Padsmith TOD, which is slightly slower than the Lethal Gaming Gear Saturn, works perfectly well. I don't have any issues with fatigue after long hours. Tracking, micro switching, flicking, everything feels really good on this mouse, mainly because of the lightweight. I do prefer lighter mice. Sub 60, like 55, I think is like my cutoff point. I like to go anywhere from 55 below. That's pretty much just my personal preference, though. I feel like 55 is just like my perfect range for myself. But yeah, that's pretty much all for my first impressions. If you guys want any comparisons, please let me know. I do feel like there is a place for these mice in the market. Although overall, having the Lamzu Atlantis in hand, it's just unbeatable in terms of claw. It fills my palm very comfortably, and I'm able to aggressively claw it, so I get a lot more stability. It's just overall so much better than the X2 for me. I'm still going to put a lot of time in. I'm going to try to just forget that the Lamzu even exists for my final review, but I did just want to put out a small video on the Mini and the regular. I think I might put more time into the regular just because it's a much more enjoyable experience for me. I'm able to actually use the mouse. This mouse it's just really difficult again for claw. Maybe this will be the mouse I learned fingertip on, because I feel like that is where I could really use this mouse a lot like that. Jeez, I can't even flick it. God damn, these feet are slow. But yeah, that's pretty much all for my video, and I'll see you in the next upload. Peace.